Previously on Balls.
We'll go a little straight, but you still don't go over the Bermuda Triangle.
I would have thought you did.
How would he know? He lives in Florida. He doesn't fly over the Bermuda Triangle.
Mark?
I live in Georgia, guys. You got this all wrong.
Do you have a Bermuda Triangle in Georgia?
I'm sorry, say again?
Johnny's curious to find somebody who flies over the Bermuda Triangle and has survived.
No, we thankfully didn't go over the Bermuda Triangle. We flew from Ohio over Kentucky and a whole bunch of mountains.
Yeah,
and
you
now
flew over a
back
lot
in
more
the
dangerous.
beautiful state of Georgia.
You flew over a lot more dangerous places. Don't want to land in some of those
I
states.
guess. Yeah, it's like Deliverance and all.
Yeah. Careful, my dad lives in Kentucky, eh? I was talking about
I know you got roots. I know you got roots here down in the south.
I don't have roots. I've just got family that live in. And Kentucky's not south. It's Midwest. Please do me a favor.
It's south. It's south enough. It's south of the Mason-Dixon line, and that's considered south in the United States.
Midwest. Indiana.
Midwest.
Do you know that they did a poll? They said if for any reason America gets nuked, which state would they least mind getting nuked first? Indiana. Indiana won it.
Nice.
Indiana won it.
Indiana won?
Indiana
okay.
won it, yeah.
Well, I haven't seen this poll.
No, it was a while
I see
ago.
some useful information, but I haven't seen that
It's a
one.
little while ago before the Colts were doing anything. Long time ago.
Yeah, my team plays tonight on Monday Night Football, the Atlanta Falcons. They've got the New York Jets tonight.
I'm a Cincinnati Bengals man myself, so I couldn't care about that game.
Yeah, they actually had a good win yesterday afternoon, Darren.
That must be their first since Boomer, huh?
Yeah, they haven't had many lately, you're right.
All right, we're not talking American football here. Let's talk Golf President's Cup. I was just saying, I only managed to switch on, a little later on in the evening. I was thinking they're going to go through the motions and, they're going to just be finishing up the games just for the numbers. And, even Phil Mickelson, his interview afterwards, he said, when someone came to him on 13 and said your game might count, he almost fell over. He thought it was going to be a formality. So what a heck of a comeback from the internationals.
Was an unreal comeback, and obviously, as you guys know, I was part of the broadcast for PGA Tour Radio, and the Americans got a couple of wins early, and then Jason Day got a big win. I was actually calling his match 1-6-4, and then all of a sudden, something sort of happened, and a whole bunch of matches started to get flipped. And then we got to the last hole, and Graham DeLette hold a bunker shot from where Paul Azinger did. I actually had the call. It was incredible. And then Mark Leishman came through and made like a 20-footer to win his match. And Charles Schwartzel went up and then won his match. And all of a sudden, it was like the Americans had 17 already. They needed 17 and a half to win. But the internationals were up in all bar one game, which was Louis Oosthuizen. And then Louis ended up halving, but then they got the match that they needed out of the ultimate closer in Tiger Woods, who knocked off Richard Sterney on the last hole.
And that was tight. I mean, it's a pity for Richard because Tiger did leave a couple of openings, but he just couldn't capitalize on those. But if Richard had managed to square that, so if they'd have got 17 and a half, they still would have won. Because I couldn't understand those commentators saying they needed the full point. It had to be 18. 17 and a half was good enough, right?
Well, 17 and a half was a tie, but because they were the cup holders, they would retain the cup.
Okay.
That's how it worked. 18 was the win. 17 and a half would have retained them the trophy. And as much as what I disagree with that, it's 18 would have been the full win.
Yeah, because the numbers still don't add up for me. Because I remember when we tied it with them over here, it was 17 all. So there's 34 points out there. So 17 and a half would have actually given them a win. They would have won 17 and a half, 16 and a half.
I'm all confused. You can say I'm from Kentucky now.
But I couldn't, because they were saying, no, he needed the win. And I'm saying, no, he just needs a half, and they've won the President's Cup. So, in fact, he didn't even have to do that, and they would have retained it anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the rules are different for President's Cup than the Ryder Cup, but it was a bit confusing. Anyway, Tiger did eventually clinch it for them. Felt for Richard Sterney. But some awesome performances. And you can come down to it and look at one or two little moments there for the internationals where would you pinpoint that it could have been a different story for them? What moments do you think it was?
Well, I think it all boiled down to that 4-ball session where they got drummed, really. I mean, the Americans turned a whole bunch of points on them. And what made it really hard, I spoke with Nick Price, was that with all the rain delays and stuff, they were mixing and matching games and sort of sending groups out of order and that sort of thing. So it did kind of work hard that way. But, in all honesty, the American team was just way, way too strong, from top to bottom. And if you had to put a 2-1 situation, I couldn't really call it that. But I could say that, sadly, I wish Brandon Grace and Richard had earned a few more points because they came out of the thing having earned nothing for that team. When a bunch of the other guys pulled the lion's share of the work. I mean, Ernie was struggling, but then started to play very well and had a wonderful win over Steve Stricker. Brendan de Jong was a strong man. Adam Scott was incredible. He just had a fantastic year. Graham DeLette, Jason Day, they really pulled their weights. And it was where the Americans had a complete team effort. I don't think they really had one with a losing record on their team. So it was more of the team effort, I think, I'd point towards than an actual event, Darren.
And the difference between these two teams is, which I think was mentioned by somebody leading into the tournament, it might have actually been Tiger, where you've got these American guys that play together in the US on these courses every year, year after year. Whereas the internationals, as Nick Price said, he called them a hodgepodge bunch of guys. He had to pick from all four corners of the globe. They only see each other on the Monday for the first time before the whole thing starts. A lot of them. I mean, obviously all the South Africans know each other. But the number of them that would never have played on this track and are not used to these conditions, surely the international have got to start looking at where they're playing. And if they're playing in the US, you've got to start picking guys on the, I know they've got to pick off the top 10, which is, I think, a little bit unfair for them because half of these guys are playing in Europe and haven't played in the US. Yeah,
that's a very, very good point. And to that, I cannot criticize Nick Price. In fact, I did a radio segment yesterday evening where I said, my only hope and takeaway from the event is that he gets another turn because to a man, every player spoke about what a great captain he was and what a great leader he was and what a great counselor and motivator and just he was the perfect guy. So I hope he gets another chance to avenge this defeat.
Yeah.
But that being said, I wish he had given Tim Clark a run because Timmy has played well at Muirfield Village.
Yeah.
He understands the American golf courses, and I think he may have been a decent captain's pick because he would have gelled with so many more players too, where it seemed like, Adam Scott was put with Hideki Matsuyama, and they were a good couple, but it was almost like Richard Sturdy, Brandon Grace were put in the anchor matches, two rookies, where I'd love to have seen someone with a bit more experience with them, because that may have been a difference maker too.
All those guys you rattled off and playing in the single and who had a good week, they're all guys that have played there before. They played in the Memorial, they played on the USPGA Tour, they campaigned there. So they know those conditions. Look, it's home ground advantage for the Americans. And having said that, if you put those stats and those facts into perspective, I think it actually increases the performance of the internationals yesterday even more, that they came that close. Because America should have actually stood on their jugular and just throttled them.
What's that humor? You got to pay down.
Sorry, Darren, the line broke up. Could you say that again, please?
I know, I'm suddenly got a very deep-voiced American talking to me here. Now, I'm just saying that the Americans, having said what we've just said, the internationals actually performed, I think, better than even that, because the Americans should have actually put the foot on the throat and just completely strangled them, and they didn't. I think it was a heck of a performance by our team yesterday.
Well, there's no doubt that the internationals can hold their head high, and Nick Price actually gave testament to that yesterday evening. So, I personally, as I look back, they did lose the match, but it was so much closer than everyone was thinking. Everyone thought it was going to be a complete blowout. Yeah. I had a funny feeling deep down, as did Tony Johnson, as did Nick, as did Mark McNulty, and I was sort of hopeful, really. But in the final analysis, I think just the might of the Americans was just a little bit too much.
You want the internationals to win one. It needs it to bring it a little closer to the kind of stature that they're right. You want the Americans to want to have to go out there and get this thing back. It's been far too long that they've dominated it. They go to Korea next in 2 years' time. Now, again, your selections, they've got to look at guys from that tour, the Asian tour, that play there regularly. And your two captains' picks have got to be guys from that tour.
Absolutely, but there's so many good young Koreans too. I think of KT Kim, I think of Sangmoon Bae. I think if you get a bunch of Koreans on that team, now they need to earn their way, unless the Captain Price, whoever the next captain is, is somehow able to convince the rules makers that they get a different selection process. But if you can get a few Koreans on the lineup or an Asian, maybe by that stage, who knows? Maybe a little 110 Lang turns pro, the little 16-year-old boy, and you create a bit of a sensation about it, because I must tell you, to your point, the home field advantage is gigantic, and the atmosphere at Muirfield Village was electric. I've been to a Ryder Cup, and that's an experience bar none, but at Muirfield Village, it's a real sporting city in Columbus, Ohio, and the people turned out en masse over there.
Awesome stuff, Mark. We will touch base again during the course of the remainder of the year. I'm sure lots of good golf still to come. Thanks a lot for your time this afternoon. All the best, and we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, my boy. You guys go well over there, all right?
Thanks, Mark. Cheers, man.
All right, bye then.
There's Mark Immelman joining us from, I don't know if he's still in Muirfield. I think he's back home in Atlanta, Georgia, on Balls Visual Radio and Mix 93.8 FM.
This is Balls Visual Radio. Darren, Simon, Kate and John. Weekdays from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Central African Time. balls.co.za